Hi and welcome to the Expansive Journey. My name is Julie, and in this video I'm going to talk about how thoughts distracts us on the spiritual journey. And the thoughts or the mind has two main purposes. It creates an ego, right? An ego mechanism. It's what creates the illusion of self and others, past and future, and separate objects from ourselves. And the ego tries to keep itself alive first and foremost. It tries to feel good, and it also tries to keep itself alive. No matter what, it wants to stay alive. And when we start to investigate this, it will try even harder, because it will recognize that you are trying to question it, and it will start to try to keep you distracted from discovering its mechanisms. And some of the ego mechanisms are to, for example, to make you feel tired when you're supposed to do your spiritual practice. Suddenly you feel lazy, you feel distracted, you want to do something else, or you're just tired, you want to sleep. And that's one thing. Some other things the mind does is to judge the teaching or the teacher. So you might have destructive thoughts about like me or someone else that you're watching. I remember this happened to me when I was watching Adyashanti, and suddenly I felt really like angry at Adyashanti. And then I realized that, wow, this is one of the things he's talking about. The mind is being triggered by what he's saying, right? And other things that the mind tends to do is to judge the process. So to judge a process is to say that, for example, this can never happen to me, or it's too hard for me, or it's easier for others than me, or I need to do all those things before I can have an awakening. I need to, or how far am I in my process compared to everyone else? The mind likes to conceptualize things, or that's what the mind does. It conceptualizes everything. So it likes to create a mental image of the spiritual path, right? That's why we call it a spiritual path. It's not really a path, but for the mind, it looks like a path, right? And this is very paradoxical, and it can, if this is not clear to you now, it can be at a later point in time when you start to investigate this and start to move into what is right here and right now. So what you seek is already here. It has always been there, and it will always be there, right? So to think that you need something else, or that you have to do something special, or all these beliefs about spirituality or yourself, the judgments the mind make, is illusory, and they are ultimately beliefs. And they are there to prevent you from looking deeper, right? From the ego perspective. Other things the mind does is to use painful, powerful emotions with the memories. And you can watch my previous video, and I will make sure to link it down below, where I talk about like negative and positive charged memories or imaginations about the future. And the mind will use that against you to make you distracted. And the thing is that when you think about a thought that has a very strong, especially a negative feeling, you can't help but pay attention to that thought, even though it's not actually relevant in that moment. You actually might not need that thought, but it comes to you and it disturbs you and it uses, like the ego mechanism use the emotion to keep your attention, right? And it can see that, if I uses fear of failure, or fear or social anxiety, or fear about the future, right? Or anger, I'm so angry at that person, right? If you can see that pattern, and the more you give that thought focus, the more the mind will continue to show you that to you. So you will be distracted with that thought. It's almost like the ego see, oh, this works, right? Oh, this works. He is being distracted now, right? And you don't see this because you're so heavily identified with the thought process that you think you are the one thinking the thoughts, right? And this is what we're discovering and peeling away. And the process, you can meet a lot of these resistance patterns. So the mind creates stories. It creates stories about ourselves on this spiritual journey, or about our past, or who we are constantly. It's like me, 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 or others, 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 right? Constantly making stories about the world, or like the matrix, or conspiracies, you know, all these stories the mind makes. And these stories are interesting, and they can be beautiful, and there might be truth to it as well at some point, but they are all conceptualized, and they distract us from the real truth, the only truth, which is the fact that we exist, that we are, and that everything that happens, we are in as the observer of it. So the thing is that most people, they live in this mental world of stories their whole life until they start to awaken. And we usually start to awaken, most people, when the stories the mind tell become very uncomfortable. When the dream becomes a nightmare, because this is what it really is. The thought world is a dream world, right? The world, like the dream about countries and cultures and language and all of these concepts about like individuals, the personalities, all of that is a part of the dream. And we start to wake up from the dream world when the dream becomes a nightmare. So this is what we're working on, to peel off slowly but surely during an awakening process. And if this is something that you want to learn more about, I invite you to check out my free masterclass. And I will make sure to link it in the description below. And there I go over, I show you what thoughts are, how they are created, and also how you can move out of the thought world and into the present moment. And you can also book a clarity call with me if you want to join my 12-month program, the 12-week program, Awaken You. And yeah, as always, make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment below. And let me know if you have experienced some of these mental distractions that I mentioned. Maybe more. There are plenty of ways the mind keeps us distracted from looking within, looking beyond, or questioning it. And until next time, much love and namaste.